Good morning, good evening, and hello everyone. My name is Payal Tandon. I will be your host today in this webinar in which we're going to talk about how to break that 700 barrier in order to get to, obviously, how to break that 700 barrier in order to get to your target score, which is above 700, I'm pretty sure, for all of you. So let's just do a quick check and make sure that all of you can hear me clearly. Can you please press yes if my voice is clear at your end? And we'll talk about all these things. Sayantika, good question, how to improve CR. I'm going to give you good number of strategies. Don't worry about that. And Raghuveer, I do appreciate your response, but I beg to differ a little bit, but I'm going to explain why I say what I say. Lakshay, you want to know about the recommended process to improve sentence correction. We will talk about that definitely. And so I believe all of you can hear me loud and clear. How long will the webinar last? About 1 hour at least. It may go up to 1.5 hours depending upon how many questions all of you have and how interactive we make it. Okay, so let's get right into this. First of all, tell me, just to understand where you guys are facing difficulties, tell me, among these sections, sentence correction, critical reasoning, reading comprehension, and quant in general, which is the biggest nemesis that you have? I mean, what scares you the most? I see SC, I see RC, all right. What else? SC, reading comprehension. So far, nobody has said quant. Nobody has said CR. Okay, there goes numbers, SC and CR. RC makes the most difficult part. Okay, all right. And for how long have you been? Rahul is very diplomatic. Everything is an issue. Tension in reading comprehension. Alka says quant. Again, I'm just picking a few. All right, all engineers, I believe, yeah, if quant is not an issue, then quite a few of you are engineers here. Harder quant questions. Okay, all right. Now, what's your target score? Just let me know what your target score is. Hello, Alex. 690, 720, all right, 730, above 700, 740, 750, good. Most of you are targeting above 700 score, which means that you are at the right place. 690 score as well. Whose was 690? One of you had a score of target score of 690 again. You're at the right place. Good. Okay, so let's get right into our session here, in which we will talk about, and let me do it in. All right. In which we'll talk about, once you have created your personalized study plan, and that is very, very important for you to create. The first step in your preparation should be to create your study plan. And once you have created your personalized study plan that's specific to you individually, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, what we're going to talk about in this session is how is it that you should prepare for each and every subsection that is tested on the GMAT so that you can cross that 700 barrier in the most, that is very, very important, and the most efficient. What does it take to prepare for each subsection? And I'm going to highlight a few things. And I know, Philippe, you want to know what the agenda for today is. Just wait for a couple of minutes and I'll get to the agenda right away. Okay, what does it take to prepare for each subsection? Okay, first of all, you need to build core skills for every subsection in verbal and quant. Okay, what do core skills mean? Slide. But first, let's just take a look at what are those, what is the process that you need to solve, and what are the things that you need to do. Secondly, you need to learn concepts specific to each subsection. And here what I mean is that, let's say for sentence correction, you need to learn what are the subject verb related concepts, what are modifier related concepts. For quant, you need to know what's the area of a rectangle, triangle, what does an integer mean, so on and so forth. How do you solve probability questions? What does probability mean? And things like that. For CR, how do you weaken an argument? That's a concept, right? How do you strengthen an argument? That's a concept. What are the different relationships in a bold face type of a question? That's a concept in CR. right? In RC, what can be inferred? What correct answer? What could be a correct inference answer choice? That's a concept, right? So you have specific concepts for each and every section. Now, yes, sentence correction has quite a few more. I mean, sentence correction has more number of concepts as compared to CR and RC. Likewise, quant, in every section you have a certain number of concepts, right? But yeah. All right. Then third thing is you need to learn the process to solve questions of each subsection. And this is very, very important. And this is one thing which students miss out on. They don't follow a very structured process for each and every subsection. By that, what I mean is for sentence correction, there needs to be that one process that you solve for each and every question, regardless of whether entire sentence is underlined, regardless of whether it's a modifier error. Likewise in CR, regardless of the question type, you really need to follow the process which is based on pre-thinking. For RC, regardless of the length of the passage, regardless of the type of the genre of the passage, regardless of the questions that are asked of you in the RC passage, you need to follow certain process to read the passage. That's the process that you need to utilize for each and every question type in each and every subsection, okay? The last thing is you need to do practice, but not just random practice, not just solving questions randomly. You need to do that targeted practice so that you can achieve your target ability. By targeted practice, what I mean is you need to solve questions that are of your difficulty level, that match your ability level at that particular point. That's what targeted practice is that you need to do. Okay. Now the items that are this one, build core skill, learn the process, and do targeted practice. These are the items that students most often skip out on. They don't pay that much heed to these things. They understand, they're aware of the fact that there are these core skills. They're aware of the fact that they have to follow a process, and I'm doing that quote for the process, but they don't actually understand what it means to follow a process, okay? But the items over here, learn the concepts and do the practice. This is something which is adopted, which is a de facto mode of solving, of preparing for GMAT, right? People typically just learn the concepts and then do the practice, right? Now, for all of these things, in order for you to do all these things, to do them efficiently, you need to do what is called as strategic review. Okay, and that is what we're going to talk about in this session. Okay, you need to build your core skills, you need to learn the concepts, you need to learn the process, you need to do targeted practice. But how do you do all of these things in a very effective manner? The common thread binding all these things is the strategic review that is required to be done at each and every stage of your learning, whether you are in stage 1, wherein you're learning the process, whether you are in stage 2, wherein you're cementing stuff, whether you are in stage 3, wherein you are doing test readiness. In any of the 3 stages, which are the typical stages of your preparation, you need to do the strategic review. And this brings us to the agenda for this session. And I still don't have I'm still not on the agenda slide. Let's quickly talk about the core skill. There are, for verbal, these are the core skills that you absolutely have to master. First thing is understand the meaning of the sentence, right? Whether it's sentence correction, whether it's critical reasoning, whether it's reading comprehension, you need to be able to understand the meaning of the sentence. Second is you need to infer the intended meaning. If the sentence is not clear, you need to infer what the author intended to say, okay? Third, you need to infer the information from the given statements. When you get to critical reasoning, when you get to reading comprehension, you need to be able to infer information that's given in multiple statements, right? You need to visualize the logic of the passage. That's very, very important. Whether it's CR, whether it's RC, you need to be able to visualize the logic. How is the author putting together the story that he wants to tell you? How is the author trying to convince you of the point that he is trying to make? Okay. And then in CR specifically, and as well as in RC, you need to pre-think before reviewing the answer choices. So these are the core skills that you absolutely need to build. Some of these core skills are truly core skills that you build before you even start learning the process. Some of the core skills are things that you build along the way as you are learning, as you are in stage 1 for your preparation. Likewise, quant. there are these core skills that you need to build, and these are not concepts. What we are talking about is, given your understanding of certain concepts, how do you draw inferences? Given your understanding of English language, and given what you understand with regards to different linkages, how do you translate information from English to from English to math, and math to English, right? How do you visualize a scenario? It could be a scenario of a rate problem. It could be a scenario of a geometry question. It could be a scenario of a probability question, right? How do you visualize that scenario such that you can get closer to the solution? How do you simplify complicated expressions? There are so many questions in which the test maker will give you really complicated expressions, but you shouldn't get scared of that. You need to simplify those complicated expressions. That's a core skill that you have to build. How do you manipulate information that's given to you so that you get closer to the solution? How do you understand the constraints of the question that you are working on, right? What are the constraints implemented on the variables? Are there any given constraints? Are there any conceptual constraints? That's again a core skill that you have to build. Have you considered all the cases that are applicable? That's another core skill. Now, I know typically when you think about quant, you don't think about these core skills. What you think about are concepts, and what you think about quite often are shortcuts or tricks. Am I correct? You don't think about quant in this manner. You don't think about, am I able to draw inferences? You don't think about, am I able to visualize scenarios, right? I want you to start thinking about quant in a different light. Quant needs to be tackled by building these core skills, and that's something which we are going to talk about in this session through strategic review, and this is where we talk about the agenda. What we're going to do is we're going to take up both the sections, verbal and quant, okay? And for SC, I'm going to explain to you, utilizing one example, how to do strategic review and why is it that you need to do strategic review. For CR, likewise, we'll take up one example and we'll explain to you the same thing, okay? And I'm going to give you a framework of what is the thought process that you need to follow to get the maximum out of the solution that you're reviewing, so that you have a very solid way to improve as you solve the next set of questions, okay? Then for quant, we're going to do exactly the same thing, but I'm going to demonstrate that utilizing 3 examples. And you're going to see how, regardless of whether you have DS questions or PS questions, it's the same thought process that you need to go through whenever you're doing strategic review, and how the strategic review will actually get you closer to the ability that you want to get at, okay? So that's what the agenda is. So in all, we're going to be solving 5 questions, 1 from SC, 1 from CR, and 3 from quant, okay? Now let's begin. So it's a pretty packed agenda. For SC and CR, it's going to take at least 15 minutes per question, and then we'll have to squeeze quant questions into the time limit that we have. All right. Now, I'm going to first walk you through the strategic review process, and the reason why I gave you all the insights into the core skills is because that's very important for you to understand why strategic review is important, right? So let's walk you through this. Now, strategic review, imagine the scenario. Let's say you are halfway into your SC preparation, you're done with the subject verb, you're done with verbs, and you are now at, let's say, modifiers, right? You've done certain concepts in modifiers. Now you're solving questions that are based on modifiers, subject verb, verbs, and pronouns. Now, when you are in that, let's say, application file, if you are an e-GMAT student and you're going through the application file in the modifier section, this is how I want you to review each and every solution in that application file or in the associated practice file. After you review the solution, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure, answer the question. Looking at the solution, did you have 100% understanding of the meaning? Okay, I want you to answer that question. So this is the flow chart that I want you to follow, okay? If the answer to that is yes, for that particular question, so what we are doing over here is, and let me just change the pen color. What we are doing over here is, we are maintaining your error log, okay? For every question, let's say Q1, Q2, Q3. For every question, I want you to put in all the details, obviously, what question type and all that stuff. But after you're done with that, what I want you to do is I want you to write down the group. Okay, what group are you in? If you understood all the 100% of the meaning as detailed out in the solution, then you belong in group A. Okay. At that point in time, I want you to think about, if you answered that question incorrectly, why did you reject that correct answer? I want you to probe into that. I want you to do that self-critique. Even though you understood 100% of the meaning, what made you reject the correct answer choice? Okay. And what made you accept the incorrect answer choice? That's very important. And there could be a couple of reasons for that. You could have rejected the correct answer choice because the sentence structure was very unfamiliar. You understood the meaning, but the way the correct answer choice had constructed those aspects to communicate the meaning, it was constructed in a very weird format. You thought maybe, the sentence started with that, or the sentence started with because, and you have those misconceptions that this is not the right sentence structure, right? So again, that could be one of the reasons. Another reason could be that there is a grammatical concept gap. You thought that this is not the correct grammatical usage that has been utilized in the correct answer choice, and that's why you rejected that choice, right? So you have to get into the depths of why is it that you rejected the correct answer choice despite having understood the meaning in its entirety. Likewise, why did you accept the incorrect answer choice? Most likely the incorrect answer choice, in many cases, the incorrect answer choice could have distorted the meaning. Why did you not identify that meaning distortion? Or maybe there was some grammatical concept that you thought is right, grammatical application or construction that you thought was right, but it actually was incorrect, right? So again, you have to identify that. Now, this is the analysis that you need to do if you looked at the meaning analysis and you said, yes, I understood the meaning in its entirety. Now, what about if you did not get 100% understanding of the meaning? There are two cases there. First case is that your understanding of the meaning was more than 50%, so 50% to 99%, pretty wide range. But what that means is that there could be two cases. Now, you belong in group B. Now, in group B also, there are two possibilities. First possibility is that you read the meaning, but there was that extra step that you had to do to extract everything from it, and you didn't really go that extra mile, right? So you got the ascent, you got somewhat of an ascent, but then you didn't take that to the next level to get to that 100%. Okay. Or the second one is that you just focused on the underlying portion, right? So you didn't really understand the background or the extra stuff that was there in the sentence. So which means that couldn't get you to that 100%. Okay. So this is where you belong in group B. Now, what group B indicates is that you are able to understand the meaning, but not to its entirety. You're not pushing yourself there. You're still just skimming on the surface, swimming on the surface of the sentence. You're not really going into the depths of the sentence that you are required to. Okay. The last is group C, which is that you couldn't get head or tail out of the sentence. You read the sentence, you didn't even bother understanding the meaning. You jumped right into the answer choice analysis, or you jumped right into figuring out the grammar of the sentence. Now, how does this look? Because this is what we're going to be doing in the next in the question that I'll ask you guys to solve. So what we are going to do now is I'm going to give you guys a question to solve. You'll solve the question, and then I'm going to tell you the solution. I'm going to walk you through the solution. And as I'm walking through the solution, I'll ask you questions that typically you need to ask yourself when you are doing the solution review on your own. So essentially, utilizing that one question, I'm teaching you how to do strategic review on your own. But before we go there, because that's the demonstration of it, what do you think about, before we go there, what do you think about this review process? How thorough is it? Do you do anything of this level today when you review stuff? So let's hear from you. I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'd like to hear from you now. Okay, no responses. That's the first time it has happened, or you guys just overwhelmed with the process. Let's hear something. Okay. All right. No, not this detail. Nishad Farhad says that. Okay. Error log, Akshata Saini. Okay. No, this is new. Okay. All right. Dhananjay says that. Okay. Okay. So Pujit, you're saying yes to what? All right, so let's look at this process in action so that you can see how to apply this process. Okay, sort of. Okay, would love to have a crack at this question to try this right now. Okay, I think I get the meaning, but not really. Okay, good. Not to this extent. Okay, not the grouping structure, but the process I use is of an error log. And yes, students do use error log. But in my experience, whenever I have looked at the error log, I haven't been able to find constructive information come out of that error log that helps you improve to the next level. That is the problem that I have experienced with the error logs that typically students maintain. Okay, now some students do a really good job, but then some students make the error log so complicated that it becomes more of a chore rather than something that helps you uh, get to the next level. Okay, that's the problem that I've seen. Okay, Vamsi is saying following this process consciously might be an overkill from time perspective. And Vamsi, I want you to keep the timing aspect on the side. You are okay. And if others also have this concern, let me just address that doubt right here and then. Is it better to solve thousands of questions, doing a quick review, let's say a 2-minute review for every question, or is it better to solve just 100 questions, but you spend at least 10 to 15 minutes on every question so that you get the essence out of, extract all the juice that you need to get out of it, so that the next time you solve your next practice set of 5 or 10 questions, you know what to improve upon. You tell me what is the better method. Okay, in my opinion, I would always go with the 100 questions wherein you spend 10 to 15 minutes per question so that you get the you extract all the juice. Okay, all right, so now let's look at this in action. Okay, this is the question. I want you all to solve this question, and what I'll do is let me share the poll for this question. I don't want you to put in your answers here. I'm going to first share the poll with you. Okay. All right. So can you all click on this? Are you able to click on this? Yes, it has come out as a link. That's good. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the question. Please don't put any answers in the chat pod. I want you to put in your answers in the form. Okay, so I'm going to show you the question now. Here it goes. Go ahead and solve the question. All right. So I see we have 45 responses. And how many students are here? About 136. So let's give it a little bit more time to get at least responses to about 50. All right. I'm going to stop. Let me just end the poll here. Okay. All right. So let me put in the stats here. So we have one student who selected this choice, 13 votes went for choice B, 31 votes went for choice C, 6 for D, and 9 for E. Okay. All right. So the correct answer is choice C. And we see that the accuracy is a little over 50%, just barely touching, barely 50%. That's the accuracy. And this is a difficult question. Okay. Now, and this is an official question, difficult one. All right. Okay. So let's look at how to solve this question. Okay. First of all, what is the process that you guys solved? And actually, let me just go through the solution now. We're already half an hour into the session. So the first thing that we do in order to solve an SC question is understand the meaning of the sentence. And for that, what we do is we do strategic pausing, which is that we read the sentence, we break it down into its smaller chunks, we understand the meaning of each and every chunk, and then we move forward. Okay, that's what we do. So let's do that. With the patient, so what I've done over here is this is the sentence structure. That's the output of the strategic pausing method. With the patience of its customers and with its network strained to the breaking point, okay, so I pause here. The online service company, some company, announced a series of, did something. What did it do? Announced a series of new initiatives trying to relieve the congestion. What kind of congestion? That has led to at least 4 class action lawsuits and thousands of complaints from frustrated customers. Now, as you notice, as I'm reading the sentence, I'm pausing. Okay. Now, in order to show you where I'm pausing and why I'm pausing, what I'm doing is I have shown you this sentence structure here, right? But when you are reading the sentence on your own to solve the question, you should be reading it, pausing it, assimilating in your mind, and then going ahead, right? Ultimately, this process will become a second nature to you. And I'm not teaching you this process. I'm just showing you how I typically solve questions. In order for me to teach you SC process, again, that's a separate session or the SC course, okay? So with the patience of its customers and with its network strained to a breaking point, so because its network is strained to a breaking point and the patience of its customers is also strained to the breaking point, the online service company made a decision. It announced a series of new initiatives. What was the point of this of these initiatives? To relieve the congestion in the network that has led to these two problems. Okay, that's what the meaning of the sentence is. Okay. Now, essentially, if you think about it, there are 2 negative situations faced by the company, right? These are the two negative situations are patience of its customers and the network is strained. Both of these are strained to the breaking point. Those are the 2 negative situations. Okay, 2 negative, oh, sorry. Let me backtrack here. 2 negative situations faced by the company are these: lawsuits and thousands of complaints from frustrated customers. Why has that happened? The reason behind that are 2 things. The patience of its customers and the networks are strained to the breaking point. Those are the 2 things. Now, in order to solve the problem, what the company has done is it has declared new series of measures to reduce the congestion that has led to the slated issues. Now, if you think about it, so what I'm going to ask you now is, what all aspects of the meaning were you not able to identify when you solved this question? Okay, and I am going to get to the meaning analysis. Okay, but first and foremost, what I want you to think about is when you solve this question on your own, were you able to get to all the three aspects of the meaning, or were you able to not, or which aspect of the meaning were you not able to get to? And let me share the form with you. I want you to put in that information, because this is the level of analysis that I want all of you to be able to do when you review stuff on your own. Okay, here is the form. Okay, sorry about that. This is not okay. Don't put in the form. You can just put, so you can just add the comments. You still, yeah, we are still not there where you can figure out whether it's group A, B, C, or D. Okay, so just tell me which one of these aspects were you not able to identify. Guys, we are not there at the relieving part or at the answer choice analysis. I want you to just look at the questions on the screen, not group A, group B. I apologize. Let's not look into that, because I need to let me just take away this form. Okay. Yeah. So tell me, which of the meanings, which of the aspects of the meaning were you not able to add? Okay, EF25 got all. What about others? Couldn't get 0.1. Current says couldn't get 0.1, the two negative situations, which are the last ones. So most likely, Karan, I'm guessing you are in group B. Shalene got 1. Okay, Shalene got all. Ashna did not get 2 and 3, so you did not get 2 and 3. So again, you couldn't understand the meaning a whole lot. Okay. All right, so this is the level of analysis that you need to be able to do. Mittal says that Mittal Patel says that he was able to get all, and hence he got to the correct answer. Good. Ronaldo says that he couldn't get to the 2. Most likely, the reason why you weren't able to answer this question correctly is because of this issue. You weren't able to understand this one, okay, aspect number 2. Now, this is the level of analysis that you absolutely need to do whenever you are reviewing the meaning, whenever you're reviewing the solution. Okay, now let's move forward. And let's link this to the core skills. If you think about it, the two negative situations faced by this company, those are stated explicitly in the sentence. There is no inference required. There is no analysis required there, right? But if you think about the aspect number 2, this is where aspect number 2 comes from. This needs to be inferred. Why? Because the author has done a poor job of constructing this part of the sentence. So you need to infer that information, okay? And that's the reason students who were not able to arrive at this aspect didn't really push themselves beyond just the surface of the sentence to take it a little bit further to understand what is the author talking about. Okay, does it even make sense to say, with the patience of his customers, the online service company announced a series of new initiatives? That doesn't make sense, right? So you have to always question yourself whenever you're reading the sentence, does that make sense, right? And then the last one over here, aspect number 3, that's a logical meaning that needs to be understood, right? So again, there are different core skills that you need to apply in order to understand the meaning. Now, this is the solution that you're going to see in a typical detailed solution that's at e-GMAT. Now, when you look at such a solution, you are able to then compare this solution with your thought process when you solve the question, and that's why you're able to answer the question whether you got all the aspects from the level of detail of solution that's required. Okay. Now, let's come to the error analysis. An error analysis step almost merges into the meaning analysis step, as you see over here, with the patience of his customers and with its network strained to the breaking point. Now here, strained to the breaking point is linked only to its network. It is not linked to the patience of its customers, and that's why this does not make sense. So the intended meaning over here is that with the patience of his customer, basically this strained to the breaking point needs to be connected to both of these items. That is what the error is. Likewise, the other error over here is trying. Trying is linked to initial here incorrectly linked to initiatives, this should be the attempt has been made by the online company and not by the initiative. It's the intent of the online company to relieve the congestion. It's not the intent of the initiatives themselves to relieve the congestion. Yes, the initiatives are being used to relieve the congestion, but really the attempt is being done by the online service company. Okay, so those are the two errors, but then those two errors also come from the meaning perspective. So again, if you do meaning analysis, if you do a thorough job of meaning analysis, if you identify why is it that you were not able to understand certain aspects of the meaning, that is what will get you to that next level, not the grammatical stuff in general. Okay. All right, now let's come to the answer choice analysis. Choice A is wrong, and let's see how many of you had marked choice A. Let me just go back there real quick. Very few people had selected choice A. Choice A was marked only by one person, so we don't need to go into that detail. Choice B was marked by quite a few of you. 13 of you marked choice B, and this was the most popular incorrect choice. So let's look at that. The patience of its customers and its network strained to the breaking point. The online service company announced a series of new initiatives that try to relieve. Now, again, here, the second error, because you weren't able to understand the error with regards to relieve part, it's not the initiatives that are trying, it's the company that is trying to relieve. Okay, the initiative, it's designed to relieve. That's not the attempt to relieve. Initiatives will not try. The initiatives will actually relieve if they are done the right way, right? So it's the service company which basically does this. Okay, all right. So that's the issue with choice B. Okay, let's see something else over here. The other thing is the patience of its customers and its network. So here, what it means is that the patience of its customers and patience of its network, that doesn't make sense, right? So you really need to identify what the correct parallel list is, and that's why the understanding of the parallel list is very, very important. What is actually patience is linked with the customers, patience is not linked with the network, and that's why it's very important to understand the sentence structure. Okay, let's look at choice C. Choice C is the correct choice. With its network strained to the breaking point and the patience of the customers strained to the breaking point. This is exactly how you wanted the sentence to be written. Okay, choice D, with its network and with the patience. So again, this one is also incorrect. Okay, and then with its network, okay, and with the patience of its customers strained to the breaking point, the online service company announced a series of initiatives to try relieving. This is an idiom error, okay? And then choice E is also wrong because, let's see here, again, to try relieving, it's a pure idiom error. But the point of all of this is that if you understand what the original meaning is, then you will be able to understand the answer choice analysis will become relatively straightforward. Because here also, with choice D also, where 9 of you selected choice D, there is a parallelism issue here, which is leading to the meaning issue. Two things are not logical. The network is not logical to the patience of its customers. Okay, so that's the issue here. Okay, now when you come to making the error log entry for this sentence, okay, what do you do here? You first of all figure out whether you got 100% understanding of the meaning or not, and then you move on to see whether you are in group B, group A, group B, or group C. So that's what I want you all to now do. I'm going to share the form with you so that you can put in your answers there and tell me, based on the review of this question, where do you think you're at? Okay, I'm going to share the form with you again. All right. Let's start getting responses here. Okay. I see majority of you are saying that you belong in group A, which is good. Now, the next thing, if you feel that you are in group A, well, it's almost, let's see, I have 20 responses. Let's get this number to at least 30 so that we can do some meaningful analysis here. Okay. So group A, I have about 24 responses, and that's okay for now. Group A, about 15 people. Group B, 8 people, then 3 here, and then 2 here. And it's changing. I'm going to just write 9 and then here 15. Okay. So when you do this level of analysis, what you now need to do is you need to now think about what the corrective action should be. If you are in group A, the corrective action for you is simply to identify why exactly you made the mistake. Okay, you need to now fill in your error log with, so essentially your error log entries need to have all of these things. What group are you in? And then if you are in group A, what was the reason to reject? What was the reason to accept? This is where you now, from this, you get your corrective actions. Okay, let's say you solve a group of 10 questions. From these 10, among these 10 questions, let's say for 50% of questions you are in group A, for 30% of questions you are in group B1, and for 20% of questions you are in group C. Now, what the corrective action for you will be very different from the corrective action of a person who, let's say, is only 20% in group A, 30% in group B, and 50% in group C. Okay, because when you do the analysis, when you compare your meaning analysis with the meaning which the student, which you have done while you're solving the question, you will be able to know whether you got the essence of the meaning of the sentence or not. Okay, and now if you belong to this group, this means that you need to now focus on understanding the meaning of the sentence, which means you need to go back to the drawing board and you need to build the process. If you belong in this process, in this group here, that's the indication that, okay, you need to just fine tune certain stuff. There are certain conceptual gaps here. There's certain unfamiliarity with certain sentence structures. You need to fix that. If you are over here, this means that you are trying, but you just have to push yourself a little bit harder. Okay, that's what you have to do. Now, again, if the group details are not clear, Mercury Man, you have to, again, this is something which you have to build into the process. And if you look into the e-GMAT course, each and every solution is detailed. We teach you how to do the strategic process on e-GMAT, on SC questions, such that you can do it from the get-go through all the stages of your preparation. Okay. Nishat is asking, if analysis done this way, how many questions do we approximately need to do in all the sections to score 730 or above? Nishant, again, if you are doing this the right way, as I said, 100, 150 questions in SC in stage 1, which are part of your curriculum. Again, they have to be of the right difficulty level with the right kind of concepts being tested. And then another 50 questions in your cementing phase. That's about it. Okay. Harsh, you have your exam in 2 weeks. Should you change your strategy or continue? Depends on you. Where are you at? How do you think? If you have to solve 700 level questions, then you need to be in group A. If you are anywhere in group B, that means you are group B or group C, that means you're not utilizing the process. So that's a question for you. Where are you at? My job here is to tell you what level of self-critique you need to do. It's your job to figure out. It's your responsibility. You owe it to yourself to do that self-critique. Okay. Now, again, an error log entry should be as detailed as this. Let's say you selected choice A, you identified that you belonged in group B. Why is it? What is it that you need to do? Now, corrective action for group B will be that you need to spend more time, spend 45 seconds more to interpret the meaning of the sentence till you reach that point when the meaning analysis becomes an intuitive process. That's what you'll have to do. Okay. Now I'm going to skip critical reasoning, because if we go into that, that's going to take a whole quite a bit of more time. So I'm going to we can share this. So we have similar process for critical reasoning as well. Again, you identify yourself, which group you are in, and if we have time towards the end, we'll come back to critical reasoning. But first, let's solve some quant questions as well. Okay. All right. Quant. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you this question here. Let me give you the poll. Okay, Mithil is saying, I'm following this process, but sometimes it takes too much time, which we don't have in the exam. What do you suggest to reduce time? Again, Mithil, if you're saying that it's taking you longer to solve questions utilizing this process in the exam environment and that's taking more time, then you have to, the process has still not become a second nature to you. You need to work on the process. And for that, it's very important to do this level of strategic analysis so that you know where exactly, what part of the process are you not able to do. Okay, so let's solve this quant question first, so that you get a flavor of what I'm talking about in quant also. Okay, and that would tell you, again, I know Sayantika, you are asking about speed and accuracy. You can't do speed and accuracy at the same time. As you do the strategic review, you know which step of the process you need to work. Are you facing difficulties understanding the meaning? Are you facing difficulties interpreting? So let's look at CR. Okay, are you able to understand all the information in the passage? Are you able to visualize how the author is drawing the conclusion? Which are you able to pre-think, or are you able to create that framework, right? Let's say you are not able to do, you're not able to create pre-thinking framework, then no matter what you do, you will not be able to solve questions in a timely manner. So when you say that you are not able to solve questions in a timely manner utilizing the process, this is exactly what you need to do to pinpoint the problem that you are facing. Okay, which step are you facing a problem in? In SC, for example, if you are not able to understand all the aspects of meaning, which meaning aspect were you not able to understand? Were you not able to infer? Were you not able to just see what's given to you right in the sentence? Right, that's the level of analysis that you need to do, because in the absence of that, no matter how many questions you solve, and that's why students end up solving thousands of questions, because they don't have this precise a way to continue enhancing their skill set. That is the problem that students face because they don't do the strategic review. Now imagine what I told you earlier was, let's say you are in SC modifiers application file, right? And you got, let's say, 55% score in that, right? Now if you sit down and you do this level of strategic review on 7 questions, and now you're able to figure out, okay, why exactly did I make a mistake? You spend that, if you're taking 15 minutes to solve a quiz, take at least an hour to review each and every question in detail of that quiz. Only then proceed to the next level. Okay. All right. Let's now move to quant. Now, Rishabh, you're saying pre-thinking is overrated. I'm not going to go into any debates with you. I have success to prove that. If you don't believe in that, it's completely up to you. Okay, and I'm not going to spend time on CR right now. If we have time towards the end of the session, we can look at that. Okay, so let's go into quant now. And I'm going to share the poll for quant question with you. So just give me 1 second here. You have the question right in front of you, so you can start solving it. Okay, statement 1, denominator is not clear. Denominator is same as as this thing here. Oh, sorry. Denominator is same as this. Please don't put the answers here in the chat board. All right, I have 17 responses. Let's get that number to at least 30. All right, let's put in the answers here. So I have 22 for this one, 3, 3, 8, 4. So this means that it's about little over 50% accuracy for this question. The correct answer is choice A, and we'll go into the details of this one here. Okay, just give me 1 second here. All right. So let's look at that here. I'm going to solve this question, and then I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you questions on how to, on where did you falter, if you faltered, okay? Now, with quant and with verbal, both, it's very important to know whether you answered the question correctly for the right reasons, okay? So let me walk you through this thing. Now, this is a TS question, and you need to solve a very structured process to solve this question, right? What is the value of X? The question statement simply asks us to find value of X, right? So it's a value question, right? Now, statement 1, how do I work with statement 1? First of all, statement 1 is a pretty complicated expression, right? It has raised to 4 in the exponent. But what you do is you make some observations and you think, how can you simplify this? Okay, it's a complicated expression, but don't just feel, oh, it's a complicated expression, so I can't handle it. You need to trust yourself, and that's a very, very important skill. Okay. Now, so I have a question from Ayush. Does the question mean it can have multiple values? Well, what you need to figure out is there a unique value of X? Does any statement, does a statement give you a unique value of X? That's what if the statement does give you a unique value of X, then that statement is sufficient. If it doesn't, then the statement is not sufficient, okay? Now let's take a look at statement 1. Now statement 1, what you observe is that the numerator and the denominator, so this expression here on the left hand side is the same as the expression in the denominator on the right hand side. So what you can do is you can simply bring this over on the other side, and what will happen is you'll get a square here, and what you get is this expression squared is 1. Now next what you do is you simply take a square root, right? When you take a square root, what will happen is x to the power 4 plus x squared plus 1 is equal to either -1 or x to the power 4 plus x squared plus 1 is equal to 1, right? Because when you take a square root, you can either get a -1 or a +1. right? Now you start to analyze this further, right? When you have this, let's now simplify it further. You can take x square common. X square plus 1 is equal to minus 2. That's what you get from here. From here, what do you get? The 1 and the 1 gets cancelled out. What do you have is x square into x square plus 1 is equal to 0, right? Now observe this and tell me what inference can you draw from this? How can you find what is the value of x? What could be the value of x such that x squared times x squared plus 1 will yield a negative number? No values of x. Okay, why? Why is that the case? Because x squared, regardless of what x squared is always non-negative, right? It's always non-negative, which means that x squared plus 1 will be positive. Okay, so now you have two non-negative numbers. Product of those cannot be minus 2, right? Which means that this scenario is not at all possible. Okay, now we come to this other scenario, x squared into x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. There are two cases that can come from here. Either x squared is equal to 0 or x squared plus 1 is equal to 0, right? If x squared is equal to 0, that means x is equal to 0. If x squared minus 1 is equal to 0, this means x squared is equal to minus 1. Again, this is not possible. So the only possibility from statement 1 is x is equal to 0. Okay, now how many of you were able to do it in this manner? How many of you analyze statement 1 in this manner? Now I know quite a those of you who selected choices A and D, 30 of you were able to say that statement, were able to conclude that statement 1 is sufficient. But I want to make sure that you got to that conclusion utilizing this thought process. Because if you did, then you're doing certain things right. Okay. So I see, did it like this. That's very good. I started with statement 2. Okay, so Dev, you should not start with statement 2. Don't do that. Okay. Now let's take a look at statement 2. First of all, statement 1, this is the structured process of solving statement 1. Now let's take a look at statement 2. What is statement 2 saying? X cubed plus x squared is equal to 0. Let's do simplification. Okay, x squared into x plus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, now you have two options here. Either x squared is equal to 0 or x is equal to minus 1, which means x is equal to 0 or x is equal to minus 1. You have two possible values. This means that this statement is not sufficient. So the correct answer is choice A. Okay. Now, if you think about it, what all core skills have we utilized here? We have utilized the core skill of simplification. We didn't get scared when we looked at a complicated expression. We've utilized the core skill of considering all cases. What are all the cases? Why are all the cases applicable? When we are taking a square root, we need to consider both the positive and the negative values, right? We also took into account the constraints. What are the constraints here? That x square is a non-negative number. Now, that's not given to us. That's the conceptual constraint that we know of based on our conceptual understanding, right? So we need to retrieve that constraint, that concept at the right time so that we can apply it and get closer to our solution. Okay. Now, once we applied all these core skills, now remember, these are the core skills that we talked about early on in this, when we started this webinar, right? Simplification, considering all cases, considering the constraints. This is how all these core skills come into context when you're solving a question, because these core skills in quant help you get from one step to the next step. Okay. Likewise, when you analyze statement 2, we simplified, and then we also over here also we considered all cases, and then we arrived at our conclusion that okay, statement 2 is not sufficient. Okay, and again, over and above, beyond all these core skills, there is that process that you need to follow in order to solve a DS question where an A, B, C, D, and E. Okay. All right. Now, is there a why did you say that you don't start with statement 2? Is there a particular reason for that? Well, you know, DS question by themselves are difficult because there is so much information. You have information in the question statement, you have information in statement 1, you have information in statement 2. So it's very important that you go in a structured manner. Like, for example, when you do statement 1, the right process is you analyze everything that there is to analyze from the question statement, right? Then you take statement 1. When you're analyzing statement 1, you need to take into account the information that you took from the question statement, right? And then if statement 1 is sufficient, then choices B, C, and E will not be don't even fall in, right? If statement 1 is not so again, there is that full flow chart that you follow. Now, if you want to do statement 2 first, again, I would say if you want to do statement 2 first, do it for all the questions. Okay, if you want to do statement 1 first, do it for all the questions. Why? Because DS questions, it has to be a very, very standard process in your head, and it would, if you start to change order between statement 1 and statement 2, depending upon what seemingly looks easy, then you're going to complicate that for yourself. Okay. Statement 2 is not part of statement 1. Absolutely not. Okay, statement 2 is not at all part of statement 1. So Sayan, if you are doubtful about, because this is a this is the concept clarity that you need to have with regards to solving data sufficiency questions. Okay, so you don't have that. Please take that feedback from this session and make sure that you learn DS questions really, you learn the right way of approaching DS questions. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rahul. I appreciate that, that comment. Now, let's do self-critique, okay? What you see over here is the solution that we just went through. And what you see on the side in red are the reasons why you were not able to solve the question correctly, okay? So could not simplify, did not consider all cases, could not reject the cases that are not applicable because you didn't consider the constraints. And again, only 50% of the class solved this question correctly. But I want all of you, regardless of whether you solve the question correctly or not, I want you all to fill in this form for doing self-critique, because this is the level of strategic review that you need to do when you're solving quant questions, okay? Y square root is equal to -1 and 1. This is concept with regards to squares. Okay, so you need to understand the concept behind squares and square roots. Okay, so that's a conceptual gap that you need to take care of. Okay. All right, let me share this poll with you. All right, go ahead and put in your answers here. And maybe I should add one more question here, one more choice here, because let's see, can I edit the form here? Okay. All right, so I'm seeing could not simplify, did not consider. So I know for those of you who solve the questions for the right reasons, you wouldn't be able to select any choice here, which is okay. Okay. So here's what I'm seeing. I have about 9 responses. Could not simplify 4, did not consider all cases, and could not reject the answer choices. Could not reject the cases because of the constraints. Okay, so all right. Okay, so does this make sense? I know I've been talking for quite some time now. Let me hear from you. Does doing this level of strategic analysis make sense? All right, so it's Sayan is asking an interesting question. We have x square into x square plus 1 in both the cases. Sayan, look at what you have over here. X square into x square plus 1. You have it in both the cases, yes. And that what you're seeing is x square plus, okay, what you have is x plus 1, not x square plus 1. Okay, so over here what you have is x plus 1. Over here you had x square plus 1 in the parentheses. So again, be very sure about what you're seeing. Yes, okay, so Gaurav is pointing that out. Good. All right. So tell me now, I want to hear from you. Tell me, what have you learned from this? We have done strategic analysis on SC. We have done strategic analysis on one problem in Quant. I know I said that we're going to do 5 questions, but we just did 2 questions. But I want to hear from you. What have you learned till now? I like the camaraderie in this group. Everyone jumped up to explain to Sayan what he was missing out on, he or she, I'm not sure. Yeah, so good. I'm glad. All right, so let's hear from you. How are you going to utilize strategic review? Do you think it adds value? What do you think? Is this something brand new? What is it? Strategic reading in SC, Sayantika says that. Comprehensive error log, Akshata says that. Follow the process, practice and practice. That's what Mithil is saying. Good. Nishat is saying breaking the 700 barrier is more about depth. Okay, good. We must use a standard process to resolve a question. Yes, absolutely right. Good. Very nice. Now, again, the things to keep in mind is, and I have these questions and we can go through these questions, but I know we are way beyond our time right now. But let me just, so don't pay attention to this. I'm just going beyond this. Okay. All right. So you have to understand what strategic review can do for you. Ability to solve 700 level questions increases as you get more skilled in applying the process. That goes without saying. Okay. I know this seems laborious. I know this seems, very, this seems as if this is not the traditional way of doing things. I know that. But traditional way doesn't work in GMAT preparation. Okay. What you have to do is you have to understand the intent behind GMAT. In GMAT is all about making sure that you are following a logical process to solve questions, right? How do you follow the logical process? You essentially make sure that you build on your core skills. What are those core skills, right? So all of that needs to be done. Now, strategic review is that link between the core skills, the process, and the concepts. How, once you learn the process, how do you make sure that you continue to improve on it? That's where the strategic review comes. That's the role that strategic review plays. And strategic review can be done only if you have detailed solutions. And EF25 has said it rightly. Sometimes the explanations of the prep materials don't follow this review format. You're absolutely right. This review format needs to be done, can be done. This strategic review can be done only utilizing the content that is written, that is created, keeping the strategic review in mind. If you were to follow just the regular solutions that you see that, okay, this is the trick, this is the shortcut, this is what is wrong, then obviously you won't be able to do strategic review to this level, right? You need to have those detailed solutions that tell you what are all the aspects of the meaning that you need. How do you simplify information in a quant question? How do you figure out all the cases that are applicable? Do you have conceptual gaps or do you have process related gaps, right? Those are the things that need to be the cornerstone, that need to be the building blocks of your course in order for you to be able to utilize strategic review. Okay, so absolutely. Rahul is saying, of course, concept clarity pooled with procedural approach forms the best way to tackle problems. Absolutely right. Nishad, you're saying, how do we realize RC? You didn't mention that in the PPT. For the right reason, Nishad. RC takes a long time. Absolutely right. So that's the reason why I couldn't even do CR. So what we'll do is we'll take this feedback and we'll definitely come up with a session on reading comprehension so that we can utilize, so that you can see how you apply strategic review in RC as well. Absolutely. Sayantika, tips for CR. Okay, good question. Let me go back to that slide. I'm gonna utilize this presentation to basically discard. Let's go to CR. Okay, here is what we'll talk about in terms of CR. Okay, so this is for CR. Okay, in CR, what we need to do is we need to first understand all the information that's there in the passage. Okay. Then we visualize how the author has drawn the conclusion. Let's say you come up with that the author has said A, B, and C. Now, in the visualize step, you say that the author has said A, utilizing A, he comes to B, and then utilizing B, he comes to C. Okay. Now, then you create that pre-thinking framework. This is where you need to understand, okay, what is the author, what's the point that the author is trying to make, and how can I address that point, or how can I weaken that point, or how can I come up with a gap in that point. Then you pre-think of those possibilities, 1, 2, 3 possibilities. You think about that, looking at the logic that the author has utilized, and then utilizing that information, you basically analyze the answer choices. Now, when you do strategic review of a CR process, what you do is you review the solution and you identify which of these steps did you falter at. Now, CR is actually very sequential. By that, what I mean is, if you were not able to understand the information in the passage, it would be difficult for you to visualize. Okay, so essentially, when you're doing strategic review, when you're reviewing the solutions, you basically figure out, did I understand all the aspects of the passage? Aspect 1, aspect 2, aspect 3, or whatever the aspects were. If you did not, then that means you belong in group D, and your corrective action is going to be different. Okay, right? Likewise, if you actually did group D correctly, then you were at visualization point. Now, were you able to visualize how the author has put together the information to make his point, right? If you were able to do that, that means you now move ahead. If you were not able to do that, that means you were in group C. Now, were you able to create a pre-thinking framework? Now, this is where the process comes about. What is it that the author is trying to prove? How can I come up with the pre-thinking framework? Okay, now, which is where the pre-thinking process comes about. Now, let's say you were able to come up with the framework. Were you able to pre-think? That's where you fall in. If you were not able to pre-think, then you fall in group B2. If you were able to pre-think, then you fall in group A. Now, if you identify yourself with group A, only then you go into the depths of analyzing the answer choices. Now, how do your corrective actions change? Let's look at that. If you are in group D, that means, so Sayantika, this is Sayantika and all the others who were asking how to improve in CR. This is how you improve in CR. This is the process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, 1 and 2 are step 1. Actually, 3 and 4 are step 2, pre-thinking, and 5 is step 3, analyze the answer choices, right? So you follow this process to solve a CR question. If you realize that you're not able to understand all the information, then what you need to do is you need to go through Master Comprehension course, in which we teach you how do you read a sentence to understand its meaning. And you go through the inference module of CR course, which again builds this core skill. Okay. If you are in group C, then you go through pre-thinking files because you're not able to visualize. We have actually built these core skills files in CR that help you build those core skills so that you can solve those difficult questions, right? So if let's say you solve 10 questions and you realize that for majority of the questions you are falling in group C, wherein you don't even get to the pre-thinking step. You're not able to make sense of the information that the author has presented. You're not able to create that logical structure. That means you need to go through these pre-thinking files, which are built so that you're able to now visualize. Okay, and how we have come up with these files is after thorough review of each and every official guide question, of each and every official mock question. We've solved these questions at least 5 times to get to understand how is the test maker actually doing this? How is GMAT actually putting together these passages? What are the argument structures that they're using? What kind of answer choices they're using? It's only after that analysis that's done by our SME team is when we put together the content such that you can now build the core skills before you expose yourself to difficult questions. Okay. Now, group B1, if you are not able to create a pre-thinking framework, but you have gone through pre-thinking files, that means you're not pushing yourself, you're not giving yourself enough time, you're rushing through the process, which means that For next set of questions that you solve, you keep aside 1 additional minute. Again, we are not concerned about the timing right now when you're building your process, when you're building your ability, right? So you keep aside that 1 additional minute to do this pre-thinking, okay? Group B2, for you to not be able to come up with those, you have the pre-thinking framework, but you're not able to come up with those points, right? For you need to go through the assumption files. And if you are in group A, you really need to analyze each and every answer choice to do that two-step evaluation of answer choice to see why you selected the incorrect answer choice, okay? Now, I'll just show you certain stuff. These are the typical aspects that you should be able to arrive at once you solve the question, okay? What do you need to weaken? You need to understand that. What am I weakening? What is the author trying to tell me, okay? Then pre-thinking framework. This is the pre-thinking framework, which is simply built based on your visualization of the passage and based on what the question is asking you to do, okay? This one is, if you're unable to do this, you are in group B1, okay? Now, thought process, you now basically output of pre-thinking is these 3 points. These are, in this case, we were able to come up with 3 possible ways in which the argument can be weakened. Now, you don't have to come up with a very precise one. You just need to, get your mind going such that now when you look at the answer choices, you have a certain framework to reject the incorrect answer choices and accept the correct answer choice, right? So over here, if you think about it, what I was able to infer from this entire passage was that the author has inferred a causality. Now, how can I weaken the causality? I basically have a very standard way of weakening the causality, right? So again, this is what you learn in the pre-thinking files that we have created such that you actually build your acumen on different kinds of argument structures. Okay, now based on that pre-thinking analysis, you now review each and every answer choice. Okay, so and then you basically do your error log entry after reviewing the solution. So again, your solution needs to be detailed for you to be able to identify, put yourself in the groups. Okay, and again, I've seen lots of error logs. They are not actionable. But this, if you maintain an error log that's based on strategic review, that's based on these group identification, you will get very actionable entities from here that you can implement on the next set of questions that you solve. Okay. All right. So let's see. Anna is saying, are there any for RC as well? Absolutely, there are reading strategies for RC. In fact, we will be conducting a webinar on RC pretty soon. So, so just log in, register at e-GMAT so that you can get access to when we conduct those webinars. Okay. Some support scanning the passage and just reading first sentences to each paragraph, others to read the whole. What do you think? What do you think I would say? Read the whole, absolutely. Scanning the passage or just reading the first sentences is not at all enough. It's actually the worst thing you can do for yourself, okay? And believe me, RC is one of the easiest sections to master, okay? All you have to do is just make sure that you utilize the right reading strategies. Again, it's the core skill that you have to build. And reading is absolutely wonderful if you just focus on the right aspects of it. It can be very scary. Reading comprehension can be very scary. But if you understand the logic behind it, you will be able to do really well in it. Okay. Ayush is asking, which course do you recommend in e-GMAT if I plan to take GMAT mid-August to target round 1 of ISB? Take the GMAT online course, Ayush. Again, course, you need both verbal and quant. And if you are currently stuck at 630 to 640, for you, the key thing would be to create a very to create your personalized study plan so that you know where you need to put more effort on. Because if you are at 630 to 640, then you're probably above 75 percentile in at least 1 or 2 sections, right? So again, you are in stage 2 for that particular section, which means your curriculum would be a little different. Okay. So definitely write to us so that we can help you out with creating your study plan. Can you throw some light? Mithil is asking, can you throw some lights on sparsely guessing strategy in verbal section to maintain time and ensure that one not ruin his or her test because of a few leftover questions at the end? Mithil, definitely that's a test readiness thing, okay? And that's a whole different ballgame. I don't want to end the session or address that right now, because all that I've been talking about in this session is really how do you how do you utilize strategic review, right? But if you are talking about how to guess, that's test readiness. We do talk about that in some of our articles, so please write to us so that we can share those articles with you. Essentially, in order for you to guess, you need to know what your strengths and weaknesses are when you are ready to take the test, okay? We cannot be, and this is one thing which I tell a lot of my students, that you don't have to be perfect in each and every subsection. You will be good in certain sections, you will be mediocre in certain sections, but you have to know what is that minimum threshold that you need to have in each of the 5 subsections that build up your GMAT score, which is why you need to have a personalized study plan, okay? Now, let's say your ability in RC is 75 percentile, but in SC and CR is 90 percentile, and let's say you are towards the end of your test. Last 10 questions, you come up with one RC passage, right? Now, at that point in time, I think my recommendation would be to skip the RC, because anyway, for RC, you're going to take longer. Your probability to answer questions correctly is lower as compared to your probability to answer questions correctly in SC and CR. So that's how you basically figure out what should be your skipping strategy. So test readiness is a whole other ballgame. And that's why you need to take Sigma X mock test to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, so that you can make those strategies for yourself. Okay, does that help, Mithil? All right. I think that's about it. Now, I would want to know how you guys like this session. What did you learn from it? And definitely show me some appreciation utilizing the likes, because the more likes I see from you, the more I get to know that, yes, I mean, that's a quantifiable measure for us. And so I would really appreciate if you could tell me how you like the session by clicking on the like button. And also, Nishat, yes, you can get the PPT. Just write to us at payal@e-GMAT.com, and we'll share the PPT with you. Okay. Any other questions? Let's spend 5 more minutes here so that I can address any other questions that you may have. And I don't see the light ticker go up. So let's get that number up, so that, or you probably didn't enjoy the session. Explanations were very clear. Thank you. I don't want to butcher your name, so I'm not even going to try pronouncing it. When is the next session scheduled? What ID to write the email to? payal@e-gmat.com. Sayantika says, liked it already. When is the next session scheduled? Please look at the YouTube. I don't remember off the top of my head, so but it should be on the GMAT Club calendar. Okay. Okay, how long does it take to change level 660 to 730? Depends on how diligent you are. That goes without saying. We've had students who have improved from 660 to 730 because within a week. We have had students who've taken about a month to get to that level. Again, it depends on how structured you are in creating your personalized study plan, which is what you can do at e-GMAT, and then how diligent you are in applying the strategies that we tell you to apply. Okay, but as said, 660 to 730 a week to 15 days, that's what I would say. Okay, because for you wouldn't really need to build a whole lot of conceptual base. Your conceptual base will be set up, but definitely you need to build on your core skills, and you need to make sure that you follow the process. Okay, so it may require some change in how you think about answering questions. And if that's the case, then yes, it will take more time, and how receptive you are to change. Avnish is saying, sometimes I feel sleepy when I'm reading RC and could not understand the vocabulary in some paragraph, how to improve on it. That's what we talk about in our RC strategies webinar, in which we teach you. Actually, the next session is on July 24th, common mistakes in reading comprehension and how to avoid them. So yes, in that session, we'll talk about how is it that you can avoid that problem that you're facing, Avnish. A short answer is you need to immerse yourself in the passage, and that's going to take care of all the problems that you have. Now you immerse yourself and you apply some reading strategies, and that's what is going to get you to the right ability, to your target ability in RC. All right then, Rahul, brilliant explanation, drill down review. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate all your overwhelming responses and your appreciation. And again, just GMAT is logical, very logical. Treat it in that manner, so that you enjoy preparing for it as much as we enjoy preparing content for all of you. Okay, so just it's a very interesting test, one of the most logically built tests in the industry. So yeah. All right, so thank you very much, appreciate that, and looking forward to seeing you in our next webinar on July 24th on reading comprehension.